It's a brand new week, and I wanted to share some thoughts that I had. Some are new, some are a little old, some are still trying to process, so hopefully they come out and make sense. So first of all, I was Shabbos in Pomona, and sitting around by the Kiddush, I thought, how cool and how grateful I am to be part of a community that spends their weekends strengthening each other spiritually and physically and mentally, and saying nice things to each other and wishing blessings. I thought it was so beautiful that we do this. If we can put our judgment aside of who's talking and what they're saying and just take the concept for what it is amazing to be part of that, as opposed to a weekend spent, just partying and gambling and whatnot. We spend it first with prayer and then together at a farbrengen, in good spirit, and trying to give each other motivation for the coming week. And that was just so nice. So happy to be part of this. So over there, someone said something so incredible. I loved it. He said in the parsha that just passed, in Parshat Tzav. Sorry, not in Parshat Tzav, but we read Parsha Spara that speaks about the Parah Aduma. So it says over there that the person that would sprinkle the water from the Parah Aduma, he would become impure, and the person that got the water sprinkled out would become pure. And Rashi says it a little bit different. He says the person that's carrying the water would become impure. The person that sprinkles it, he stays pure. So there were two different versions that came up at the farbrengen of who said this. But one of them was that the Rebbe said it. One of them was Yochanan Gordon said it. But in any case, the vart went like this. A person who's carrying around mei nida, which is the water that purifies, and doesn't use it to purify someone else, he becomes impure. The person who's carrying around the water to purify but sprinkles it on other people and purifies other people, he remains pure himself too. And I thought that's fascinating, because we all carry around gifts that God gave us. And oftentimes we keep them to ourselves. We don't want to share with the world. And the result of that is that they end up making you impure. They end up hurting us. If we have gifts, we have stuff to share, we can help other people, and we don't, it turns into something that bites us in the butt. I was thinking even as far as self-doubt. A lot of people are like, well, I'm not confident enough to share my gifts. Like, yeah, that's because you're not sharing them. They're turning into doubt. The gifts themselves become a source of pain if we don't share them with others. And I don't mean to force it onto other people, but the universe knows how to knock on your door and tell you, hey, buddy, we need some of your light. It knows how to do it, and you will know when it's time to. And you get signs of it all day and all night if you're just open to it, and you don't have to force it onto anyone. There's so much opportunity to share your light. So how important it is to do that. And the consequence of not doing that is that we end up in a place of doubt, in a place of feeling impure and unworthy, etc., etc., etc. So it's not coming. What comes first is actually our light comes first, but when we don't shine it, it starts to turn into something that can impurify us. So please, spread your light. The world can use a lot of light, and you've got what it takes. So that's one thought that I thought was just so beautiful, so profound. The next thought is a little more complex, and I hope I can deliver it without it being too triggering or hurting anybody, because that's not my intention. My intention is to empower. So it goes like this. So we know that in the Torah, there's often times where things seem to be out of chronological order. And Rashi likes to say, Ein mukdam u'mochar b'Torah. There's no before and after in Torah. Things are just said in in one way which could have happened differently in real time. And everything that happens in Torah is actually a lesson for us in real life. It's not just something that happens in the book, but Torah is actually our life story. So what that means is that our whole life is actually not in a chronological order. Although it may seem that we were born and now we're here, because time went that way, that we turned 1 and then 2 and then 3. It actually isn't true. There is no order in the time that things happen in our life. And what we can learn from that is something very, very, very powerful. And it connects to what I was saying before. We all have a lot of light and a lot of stuff we can share with the world and make it a better place. And because we have all of that, there's a force that wants to work against us. We call it klippa, resistance. It wants to keep us locked up and not in a place that we are able to share and shine and tap into our gifts and share them with the world. And those are important too, because without the resistance, there would be no growth. So that's all important and it's all necessary. But what we can find maybe with this understanding is that oftentimes a person finds himself in a situation and he says, I'm a victim because of this trauma that happened to me and that trauma that happened to me. And because of that, I'm angry and pissed off. And that's why I have all this baggage I carry around, and then it causes me to do all these terrible things, and it's not my fault because look what happened to me. We can live that story for a very long time. We can have all those different types of addictions and blame it on our traumas, and how it's not really our fault. But if we turn things around, and said, hey, maybe things aren't in order here, we may say, actually, first came the addiction. First came the bad behavior. First came the things that we did that weren't very nice and harmful to others. That came first. And because we didn't want to face it, because if we did, we'd have to take responsibility. And if we took responsibility and accountability for it, at some point, they would actually go away and our true light would shine through, as is the order in recovery. And in anyone that's in a healing and growing journey, they're going to come to a place where it's time to face the stuff we did and take responsibility. And ironically, once we do that, we're kind of free of them. The process could be very painful, but it ultimately leads to us to being free. If we don't want to look at our wrongdoings and the ways we hurt other people, then we will deny them forever, and denial doesn't make them go away. It just means we're carrying them around unconsciously, but they're still a trainload of weight and baggage that we carry around. So first comes that, and in a way, for us not to see that, we create all this trauma around it first. We created all this trauma around it also. So instead of seeing it as because I had all these traumas, therefore I had all this negative behavior, it's actually the opposite. Because I knew, or my soul knew, that I would have all this negative interactions, negative behavior, I would cause harm to people in the world around me, I created excuses for it by having all this trauma. And then in the way things seem, it looks like first the trauma came, and this is the result of all the trauma. I'm just a victim. It's not my fault. I didn't mean to hurt anybody. I'm just, I'm the victim. I was hurt, and because I was hurt, I couldn't see what's true, and therefore I do all this harmful stuff, and it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. But if we took away the chronological order of things and say, no, there's no first and after, then I might see myself as, wow. Because my resistance didn't want me to take responsibility for my actions, because if I did, the true light would come out. Therefore, I created all this trauma for myself to be an excuse for me not to take responsibility for my life, and therefore not become a healed and solid person that can shine light. And with that perspective, you get so much, I find so much empowerment that wow, so you're saying all my traumas that I experienced, even as a young child, I actually invited those in order for me to have an excuse to not take responsibility for my life, so that I wouldn't be able to shine the light that I possess inside my heart into the world. Wow. That's so powerful. That's so cool. And that can flip the whole perspective of I'm a victim to like, actually, I'm not a victim at all. It was just my resistance, which I need in order for me to grow, created all this trauma to keep me away from my own light. I hope that makes sense. It's so hard to put it into words, but it makes a lot of sense to me. And it's super empowering for me. So I wanted to share that. And I just did. I'm trying to think of another way to say this. Okay, I think I found some more words for this. So, in other words, let's take someone who actually had this journey in their life. You know, they had some deep traumas as a child that resulted in some negative behaviors, addictions, etc. Fast forward, they decide it's time to take control of their life. They go through a recovery process, and now they're on the other side of it, and they realize that, wow, the same power that brought me into addiction and negative behavior, I can now use to propel me forward, to grow an amazing business. I can use that power to love my children, to love my spouse, to be a source of light to the people around me, as opposed to a source of darkness. But with the same exact energy. And they're like, wow, this is so cool. It's been there the whole time. I just was so afraid of it. So I covered it up with all this addiction and all this other stuff. And you start to backtrack your life and you say, holy moly. So the truth is, this is really me. This is the real me. You know, no one comes out, a recovered person or someone who's in recovery and working on themselves and trying to be better and say, this isn't really me. The real me is the traumatized, addicted individual. This is the fake me. You know, the healed version is the fake me. I'm just, no. It's always, wow, this is really me. I feel me finally. This is the first time I could just feel like I'm in my body. I feel like comfortable in my own skin. So the truth is for everybody, for all of us, that if we don't feel that way yet, it's because we haven't tapped into ourselves. Why not? Because we're not really being ourselves. We're using this cover of, oh, I've been traumatized and therefore I'm like this, with all these excuses. But hey, this isn't really me. So what's going on here? Oh, this is just a bunch of resistance that I put myself through in order for me not to take responsibility for my life, so that my true light doesn't shine through, because that's the job of my resistance. The harder it fights, the more strength is revealed to me that I really have. What I'm trying to do is not knock the resistance and say it's bad, but also not to say it's great. It's kind of this weird balance of we need our resistance, but it can pull us to dark spaces. So, but the idea is that there is no real order here. And once a person is in a healed place, you realize that, oh, it's true. Maybe I did have all this darkness in my life to prevent me from my light coming through. Because the dark side of the universe doesn't want the light to shine through. So it has a job. So we create trauma, we create all this other stuff. But actually, in the order of things, I was always this really light person with tons of delight, tons of positivity, tons of love, and tons of power to use it for good and not for negative. I hope that's clear. If not, oh well, I tried. You can always reach out to me. We'll discuss it and get some more clarity. Thank you for listening.